This session then is about the maintainer role in GitHub. I will try to describe what the maintainer role is and what its tasks and responsibilities are, and also what repository configurations that should be enforced within the Eiffel community. I will talk about these subjects. First, I will mention something about what we see missing in the current maintainer's role description. I will go through some different GitHub access roles or rules levels. And I will then discuss what roles we do have today in the Eiffel Community GitHub organization. And I will mention what the maintainer role, so I will not do that. That was to be removed from the agenda. But I will then clarify in the end a proposal of the clarification of the maintainer tasks and responsibilities. So this is parts of what the current maintainer role description states in our own GitHub Eiffel community in the community repository. That maintainers are active contributors and participants in the project that they are maintainers of. They do have the rights to accept pull requests, and the individuals can be maintainers to multiple Eiffel community projects. I have the link there for more details. So what could be missing there then? Well, we see that it's not really clear enough when it comes to how we should handle majority decisions and approvals in the pull requests. There is no real statement on how many maintainers there should be in one repository. We have some repositories with very many maintainers, and we have some with very few. Then we need to be clear on what is the difference between the so-called code owners, which is a GitHub concept, and the maintainers of repository. And we should, of course, have a common role description for all maintainers in the whole community so that everyone can live up to the same ways of working. So first then, what are the current access roles or the existing access roles in any GitHub organization or project? So first, in the organization, we have the Eiffel community as an organization in GitHub. There are 3 different roles in there. So we have the owner role, which has full administrative access to the entire organization. And the owners of our GitHub organization are the people in the Eiffel Technical Committee. And then we have the member role, which most of you, I guess, are part of. A member can see every other member and non-secret teams in the organization, and a member can also create new repositories. Anyone can be a member. There is no restrictions from our end. I mean, anyone is welcome to join the community as a member. But then we also have a role in GitHub, which is called outside collaborators. We don't use it very much, but those who are not members, but still part of some team in the community, for example, or have been somehow involved in any pull request or such, they are stated as outside collaborators. They will have a read, write, and admin permissions. They could have one read, write, or admin permissions to one or more repositories. So you don't actually need to be a member to be able to have write access to the repositories. That could be good to know. So when it comes to repositories then, that was the organization, but when it comes to the GitHub repositories, there are 5 different levels of access you can have in a repository. You can have the read access, which is the most basic one, where you only can read things in the repository. You have the triage level. We have the write level, the maintain level, and the highest level is then the admin level, where you can handle any configuration for the repository. It should be noted as well that admins, the owners of the GitHub organization, they have implicitly admin rights to all repositories. So it's not really possible to revoke the rights of any organization owner to the repositories below it. Some details around what these different roles then give, what kind of access they give. So I've written the right maintainer and admin role there, which are most interesting for this maintainer discussion. So all these different 3 levels, the right maintainer admin, they can be used to merge a pull request. It's not enough to be a reader or a triage level member to be able to merge pull requests. And you would need the maintainer admin role to configure the repository when it comes to descriptions or topics or wikis, etc. And also to configure how pull requests can be merged, what merge rules to set on the pull requests. And the highest access then is needed when you want to manage the actual access to the repository and define code owners, for example. And there are a lot of other levels there. There's a link on the top. Here you have a link to more details from the GitHub documentation about these different roles. We have a question there that we need to sort out. Currently, we've said in our proposal that maintainers should have the right level in their repositories, that they are maintainers of. We could maybe think of if they should instead have the maintain level to be able to, for example, configure descriptions and topics and such in the repository. But currently the level stated is the right level. Code owners, I mentioned that's a concept in GitHub, and there's a link there to the code owners description in GitHub as well. Code owners can be defined by an admin or an owner of the organization. They are then updated through a code owners file. You see the example in the bottom of the page there, where we have said that the Eiffel Community maintainers team should be the code owners in that example. Code owners will be automatically requested for review. So as soon as the pull request is created in repository, the code owners are notified to be requested to do a review on it. And then code owners can actually be defined per branch in the repository and even for a subset of the files, so the code in the repository. But for our community, we have currently set that the code owners should be the same as the maintainers. So maintainers and code owners are equivalent in our world. And that the code owners should then be valid for all code in the repository, for all branches and all files. If a new repository is created from the repository template repository, it will automatically contain a code owners file, which you obviously need to update the contents of, but it will be there. And our definition of code owners is that it should only be one line, some comment, but then one effective line saying more or less linking to the team, the GitHub team that should own the code. That's about the code owners. So what roles do we have then in the GitHub organization? Well, we have contributors and maintainers. Those are the ones we have stated ourselves in our own documentation for GitHub. Both are, of course, obliged to follow the code of conduct, which is linked there. We have a code of conduct quite recently created as well. And the maintainers are responsible for following up that the code of conduct is followed within their repositories. Apart from what I said in the beginning, maintainers are also eligible to vote on technical committee elections. They can also be nominated as members to the technical committee during the elections. Yeah, I think the rest I already said in the beginning. So I mentioned teams. So there is also a concept of teams in GitHub. And Maintainers are always part of one team, or many teams they could be part of, but there's one team per repository. And as I said it before as well, we will have write access. The maintainer should have write access to the repository. We should then maybe discuss if we do need the admin access instead of, or sorry, the maintainer access instead of write access. So there will be a dedicated mail list as well. There should always be, which is linked in one of our documents in the community. And the main purpose of that mail list is to be able to report breaches to the code of conduct. Then those mails will end up at the maintainers. So clarified maintainer tasks and responsibilities then. This is a proposal. This is part of the configuration of a repository, where we would say that we should then require pull request reviews before they are merged. And we should state the number of approving reviews for every pull request. That number should be corresponding, of course, to the number of code owners or maintainers in the repository. And it should be at least 50% of the number of code owners. So if a repository has 3 code owners, the required approving reviews should be 2. It should also be, we should dismiss stale pull request approvals when new commits are pushed, which means that if someone has approved a pull request and then a new commit is added, then we should dismiss that approval and require a new one. We should also require reviews from code owners, not just anyone. This is a proposal which we haven't even discussed too much within the technical committee yet. So we will do that before we enforce this, of course, but it's anyway a proposal. And there are a number of issues and pull requests on this topic, which we haven't yet discussed through and merged. So there's one issue, for example, and there is a pull request that is to be discussed and merged and then enforced. So remains to be settled and enforced. And I think now it's time for a discussion on this. If anyone has any ideas, maybe previous experiences from other open source projects, how this works well or bad in other areas, and also if you have any opinions about the proposals I put there. It's time for questions or comments.
I think it's a good idea. I actually already changed the number of required approvals for the protocol repo, and it seems to work fine. I wonder if that would, the required review from code owners, would that mean that organization admins wouldn't be able, if they're not listed as code owners, if their approvals wouldn't count?
No. It wouldn't, but there's another setting for that. I didn't add this to this snippet, but there is a setting where you can say that also admins or the admins should not be dismissed from these requirements or something like that is stated, and that means that admins, or sorry, organization owners, which are then admins in all repositories, they will be able to handle the PRs. But when they try to do it, they will be notified by a different pop-up or a different button saying, I want to use my higher level administrative authority or whatever to enforce this merge or whatever it is. So it will be a 2-click approach for when merging such pull requests if you are not actually the code owner of a certain repository. That's at least how I understood it. So it's a bit, we can make it harder for us as owners of the organization to, by mistake, accept pull requests. We will be notified ourselves when we try to do it, and if we use our leverage authority.
That's excellent, because I think we said in the TC meeting that that's exactly how we wanted things to work. To have sort of like a some kind of notification and sudo approve this change. Well, that's excellent. That's actually how it works.
That's how I understood it. We haven't tried it, so as you understand, all of you here in the meeting, that we haven't really discussed this through all and not tried every part of it. But that's how I understood it when I read about it the other day. We can make it that way. See if we can find the permission page where we actually set that. Just a second. Yes, here we go. So this is not enforced, but it's my temporary settings. There is something here, include administrators, which means that we should enforce all configuration restrictions also for administrators. And us as owners of the organization are then administrators. So as I understand it, with this tick box, these rules will also be happening to us. Good comment, Magnus. More comments or questions?
I have a question. Like, so you just mentioned that this is a proposal, like to have this kind of maintainer and contributor. So, and code owner. So this is not in place yet, or like, or maybe we have already somehow have some maintainers or code owner or contributor already, like like existing role, like existing people already appointed for this role.
Yeah, we have maintainers already, of course, in all repositories, but it's not enforced to be used this way that we describe here. We have started to use the code owners file in a few repositories. I believe the protocol repository and the community repository, at least, and maybe some more. But we haven't yet enforced them in all repositories. So that's why we wanted to bring it up here as well, so everyone is aware of that this is what we intend to do. It might slightly change, as you understand, but then we will then enforce this in all repositories in the organization so that everyone follows the same rules. The number of code owners per repository, I mentioned that we might have too many in some repositories today. We will, of course, need to discuss that with the maintainers of that repository, the current maintainers, to see how we should deal with that. So that's to be sorted out.
One problem with requiring to authorize reviewers is that you might not have that many active in a project.
Yes.
I mean, typically changes will be made probably by one of those two maintainers.
Exactly. I think it's also the case that you by default cannot merge your own pull request. And I think that's actually true as long as you're not an administrator. Because administrators can merge anything. So if you are a code owner and you create your own pull request and you're not also an administrator, then there needs to be some other person with that authority in the repository to merge it for you, unless you will need to request it from us in Eiffel Technical Committee to help you out in merging them. So if there are such cases, then of course we need to look into how to deal with those as well.
Yeah, obviously we can't have TC members being a bottleneck. I mean, maintainers need to be able to be maintainers.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I wanted to bring the question up on this, if we should actually give the maintain role to the maintainers, which means that themselves then could update, for example, the description and the topics of their repositories. And I think that's quite suitable that the maintainers would be able to do that.
I agree.
And there are certain more. There are a lot of, I mean, there's a long list. If you follow this link, there's a long list of authorities that differ between these 5 different levels of authority. But these are the ones that I just brought up for your attention. There are, of course, others that are also interesting to look into. Yeah. Good. Anything else?